Fantastic game. 94 points between the three of Oubre, Maxey, and Embiid. I mean, just to start, can we begin with Joel Embiid and his triple-double? Kelly Oubre combined together because they were the ones that steadied the ship for the first half to keep them in this game, had the lead at the break. Kelly Oubre, Joel Embiid, fantastic throughout the game, but certainly in the first half.
Guys, Joel Embiid played over 45 minutes tonight. That to me is the stat of the game. If we started the season and you said on January 22nd that Joel Embiid was going to play 45 plus minutes in an overtime game, get a triple double, and they would beat the Houston Rockets, we would wonder if he had a bionic leg or what the hell happened. So like that alone, super impressive. But then like I just thought this was an offensive execution game where they just pantsed Houston. They just had no answers for them for most of the night. For the first, I'd say 3/4 of that game, this was all about. So I know, Rich, I know you were talking about it during the game. The pin down, and they get a favorable matchup, and then it's just Joel on the block going one-on-one against whoever it is, Tari Eason, Amen, Jabari Smith, Kevin Durant, and he was just killing those guys. Like power post moves, going to the rim, getting fouls, short jump shots. It's some of the best post basketball I think we've seen from him. And then obviously the passing, like Nick Nurse talked after the game and said, that's just about him making quicker reads. Like the ball is coming out of his hands faster, and that's allowing his teammates to get these open looks. He's hitting cutters, he's hitting guys in the dunker spot. I think you can see the trust level is there. I think you can see the decision-making has been good. And I just think that's some of the best he's played over an extended period in a while. And then, yeah, Kelly Oubre, Devon, was just outstanding. And it wasn't like it was initially started the game, the starting lineup, just like, oh, they put them on the floor and they blew these guys away. So this was a overtime, figuring some things out a little bit. I think they had only played 4 possessions together with that lineup coming into tonight, which is wild. It shows how banged up they've been or how uneven the lineup has been. But Kelly's ability to switch, and that one sequence he had against Şengün in the second half where knocks the ball out of bounds multiple times, ultimately forces a miss, and then like probably 45 seconds later he hits a transition 3 off a different possession. And like the energy he brings night to night has always been there. When he shoots, he just transforms this team because he is a very good defensive player with some offensive upside. You saw all of it tonight.
We're headed to overtime, everybody. Head to allphly.com for the remainder of the show. Thank you on the television side. Off Friday, back at 2:30 for the 3 p.m. Sixers-Knicks game on Saturday, the matinee, 2:30 pregame right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Kyle, 45 minutes for Joel. Did he have any comment? Did he catch his breath by the time you saw him, or is he still not talking? That's a ton of minutes for him to play.
He actually did talk already. He showed up in his jersey before doing all his post-game treatment and whatnot, and was in pretty good spirits. And we asked him about a bunch of stuff, including the minutes. I asked him about the rebounding, because I think we generally think when Joel rebounds, that's a sign of he feels good. He's moving better. He's attacking the ball in midair. But he actually pushed back on that and said, I think a lot of times what I'm doing is still impactful to rebounding, where I'm hitting a body, I'm trying to box out my man, I'm tipping stuff to other teammates. There's a little bit to that, but I do think what you saw tonight was just a more realized, a more mobile, a more active Joel Embiid. In that sense, like he chased down some loose ball rebounds. Normally, like high pointing the ball, yeah, he does that every so often, and like that's not front page news. When he's sprinting to a ball that's about to drop in like the middle of the lane, that's something different. That's a different level of Joel, and I think that says a lot about where his trust in his body, his conditioning, all that stuff is. And look. January is always a good month for Joel. Actually, here's a really funny quote he gave tonight, because tonight is the anniversary of the 70-point game, right? 2 years ago today. And so he gets asked about, you have this big game tonight, you had that big game 2 years ago. And he's like, I might have to talk to my wife and as we're family planning, try to have a kid born on January 22nd, because apparently it's a good luck night for me. So he had some fun with that. But listen, I just think when they have this version of him, and you can get that out of him for, first 3 quarters of this game, and then you have Tyrese Maxey waiting in the wings to offer the closing punch that he offered tonight. That's a pretty dynamic combination as your 1-2.
Kyle, let's stay on the Maxey piece because we've talked about his ascent and even fighting through all the minutes played, where we've discussed ad nauseum this season of stars finding a way. In the first half, he wasn't great with his shooting. He finished with 12 points on 5 for 11 shooting, did have 5 assists. But in that second half, to score 18 points and then to put the points up that he did in overtime and play the remainder of that way and put his handprint all over the final score on this one. What did he have to say? Because we did see that he was at the podium sporting the cool hat and all. What did he have to say about fighting through those things?
VJ Max, Devon. Apparently that's committed to now, I guess.
Yeah, and so what did he have to say, though, about fighting through the first half and then turning it up the way that he did in that second half?
Yeah, I specifically asked him what he's learned about compartmentalizing struggles in one area of the game and, how do you just keep going, right? It's tough. Like, you guys that play basketball a ton in your lives, if you're shooting like crap from 3, I don't think people normally respond to that by saying, oh, I'm just going to keep attacking in other ways. Most people just pass the ball to somebody else. He doesn't have that luxury because he's one of the best players on the team. And what he said was, you just have to find ways. Like, you can't worry about, if I had a bad possession on one end, that doesn't mean you could go down the other end on defense and hang your head and say, well, who cares about this play? Like, I'm going to sulk. And I think he applies that same logic to, if I miss this shot or I'm missing these types of shots, it doesn't mean that I'm going to miss layups. It doesn't mean I'm going to miss runners. And I think at the end of this game, it wasn't like they ran a lot of complicated stuff. It was a lot of, like, they cleared out for him and they got him some matchups where the Rockets have a lot of good defenders, right? And a lot of big switchable defenders.
Except one.
But they were able to find some favorable ones. Number one, I know who Rich is referring to, but also, like, when you put him in space against these guys, he's got the speed advantage against all of them. And that includes Amen Thompson. Like, Amen Thompson is a freak athlete, but in terms of that 3-point line to rim speed, he can beat him there. So I just think he's been able to, the fact that he was able to shake that off and execute in crunch time tonight is remarkable, because I thought we were headed for just boy, Maxey wasn't good enough and they lost type of game, and he really summoned something down the stretch.
That's what I said before the game, man. They're too big they're too big. They can't guard him. Like I mean that as a positive.
Honestly, I mean, just the one that was, even though they're too big, Amen Thompson is a fantastic first-team All-NBA defender, and even for him to be fatigued the way that he is, Kyle, in the fourth quarter, final possession, 7 seconds left, they didn't call the goaltending, which was, again, crazy. But
Criminal.
He got there and got the ball off and got by the defender, forcing Kevin Durant to leave his man to come and rotate to try to block that shot. So even with that, as tired as he was, and we've complained about it as early as Tuesday, when we were talking about they didn't have enough from him, just fantastic for him to dig deep enough to be able to do all that, especially against that team as big as they are.
But by the way, the difference is when he gets blocked, like, his first couple dribbles are sideways on those, and then he ends up getting blocked on that. That was straight line, and yes, it should have went in. Kyle, my question for you, did they talk about that afterwards, or just like the resilience? Like,
yeah,
obviously they didn't have to be mad about it as much because they did come back and win the game, but that was a terrible call, and it was, like, resilient of them to come back and play such a good overtime after that.
Yeah, so a few different things. Tyrese was asked if he got an explanation on what happened, and he just said no. And then he stared straight ahead and made it very clear that he was not going to get himself in trouble, and did like everyone makes mistakes to the follow-up question. In terms of the response, he said that Trendon Watford was a big voice in the huddle saying, it's a 5-minute game. Like, shove that aside, just like anything else. Like, the call happened. And how you respond to that is ultimately. And by the way, I thought Watford, at least in the first half, had a pretty good night. Was a positive contributor for sure. So we'll see what happens with him in the rotation moving forward. And then I think what Nick said about the game, but about that moment in general, was like they felt really good about how they executed tonight. And so even when they had stretches of the game, like at the start of the fourth quarter, midway through the fourth quarter, where they're not making shots and they're struggling, and Reed Shepherd's going a little crazy, they're looking at themselves and saying, we can win this game. We can beat this team because we've been getting the shots we want basically all night. And so I think that's ultimately what they came back to was, yeah, the call was blown. And Nick also said they're supposed to call those as goaltends and then review it. Like that's a mandate from the league because that's the only way you trigger a review is by calling it in the first place. And then you go back and look at all of it. But I just think what they said was, we've been the better execution team tonight. Let's go out there and prove it.
Kyle, last one for me, and this is just me as somebody who sat next to you for a lot of these games. I was jealous that you got to watch Kevin Durant play like that in person. That was just that seemed outrageous. It was outrageous on the couch over there, but I'm sure it was amazing to be, a couple feet away from him when he was doing that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, for a lot of that game, I'm sitting there and I'm like, he's 37 years old and PG is 35? And Kevin Durant is like, it's just everything is being funneled through him. And meanwhile, Paul is just kind of stand still, maybe second side guy, whatever. But then in overtime, Paul was better. Like Paul made the plays when they counted. And that is the luxury of having more of a role player role, obviously. But yeah, like the Kevin Durant stuff, Derek would tell you, I was sitting there, the most infuriating play of the game for me. Minute 10 left. They tie the game. They make the comeback. And Maxey ends up on Durant on an island. And I'm sitting there like, you sent help the whole fucking game, and now's the time when you're just like, hey, KD ISO. Like, we're just happy that he's 9 inches taller than the guy who's guarding him, and we're not sending anybody. And Kevin Durant takes like an 8-footer that he makes. It's like, what was the plan here? Like, I don't understand why you defend this guy one way the whole night, and he's succeeding anyway, by the way, other than he had a ton of turnovers was the big problem, and that is a thing that when you pressure Durant tends to be a problem for him. But I was just baffled. It's like, Kevin Durant said, you know who I am, or I know who he is. What was the plan there? So thankfully, they got away with that and executed enough on offense to get away with it.
When that happened, I asked Devon, I was like, did they screen for somebody? Like, how did Maxey get stuck on him? Like, it just, like they've been trying to avoid that switch for literally 48 minutes. And then how does he end up? Yeah, that's the one thing. The Sixers matching up in transition, still a lot to be cleaned up in that regard. But you know what? Houston had that problem tonight too.
It's my guy, KD.